We remember and we celebrate. That's what we do in this season. And that looks like, I want to suggest three things. First, what God has done in the past. Okay, 1 John 4:9. By this, the love of God was manifested in us, that God has sent his only begotten Son into the world so that what? We might live through him. And so this whole idea of what God has done in the past, we have to notice that. Not just the Christmas story, but you think about the Gospels. Think about the early days of the church. Think about the trials and the burdens that the early believers went through, but how they lived victorious lives. Colossians chapter 2, when you were dead in your transgressions and sin, and the uncircumcision of your flesh, God made you alive together with him. He has made us alive together with Jesus. But not only do we look at the things that God has done in the past to store up our hopes, we've got to notice the things that he is doing now in our lives. He is calling, there are several things. The first thing he's doing, he's calling all men to himself. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Do you know any that are weary and burdened, heavy laden? Well, Jesus' invitation has come. But he is also perfecting me through his grace. I love the passage of Philippians 1:6. He who began a good work in you will perfect it, will complete it until the day of Christ. And so he is constantly doing that in my life and yours. He's perfecting us, he's maturing us. And that involves several things. According to Romans chapter 12, it involves being transformed by the renewing of our minds and conform to the likeness of Jesus. That means my thinking, my attitudes, how I walk out my life, how I behave with those that I love, maybe some that are a challenge to love, but it changes all of that. And so we are setting our minds on the things above and not necessarily on the things of this earth that perish, because our life is hidden with Christ in God. We are storing up treasures in heaven where moth, rust, and thieves cannot destroy. And we're building our lives on the solid foundation of Jesus Christ by remembering and by celebrating. But there again, we've got to pile them up. We've got to pile them up. Well, it also involves, by his Spirit, he's healing me of sin, sickness, and scars. Sin has that impact on all of us. There's not a person in this room that doesn't have a lot of hurts, scars in your life, a lot of hard memories. I remember early in my life, Christmases left me more disappointed than happy. Why? Because it was a condition of my family. I was born into a really imperfect family. And there were a lot of memories I have in my head. Even now, I don't want to go there because they're hard. And I bet some of you all have some of these hard memories as well. But the Lord can clean those up. He can bring hope, peace, and that's what we need. But God's love has also commissioned us. Matthew 28, to help people find and follow Jesus. And how can we not look at this world that is so absent of peace, and to know the people you and I do in our own circles, how can we not allow the light of Christ to shine through to other people? Well, the third thing we have to do to pile up our hopes and to celebrate is what God's love will accomplish in the future. I love this verse, Colossians 3. When Christ, who is our life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory. Can you imagine what that day is going to be like? We need to imagine that. We need to think about it often because we're 2,000 years closer to that event. And when I look at the circumstances of this world, I can't help but think Jesus coming. It's going to be sometime soon. I want to be ready for that. Jesus said, in my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you. But I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. So what's that going to look like? Well, the Apostle Paul says, as things which eye has not seen, ears not heard, neither has entered into the mind of man what God has prepared for those who love him. That is going to be something to behold. And we need to think of those things to help store up the hope that we need to be able to live out our lives and to look like Jesus when the end of our days has come.